and welcome to Afflictions Sugarcoated, a podcast where we sugarcoat some of the world's so-called afflictions and rate their plausibility on a scale of 1 to 5. I'm Minnie Kim, and today we'll be sugarcoating a Wyoming man gone wrong. So this is a small recollection of an event that happened about a month ago at the NSDA 2025 event. That's the National Speech and Debate Association. I was there with my team, somewhat representing Korea for the World Schools event, which is arguably the best event. I won't say how the tournament went. Actually, it went pretty horribly. My team and I forever hold our grudges against our judge in round 3, who essentially robbed us of the entire competition, but that's a rant for another time. The event was held in Des Moines, Iowa, out of all places, and this is a very quiet city. There's certainly a beauty in being able to drive and see nothing but grass and plain land and hills. It was still relatively urban, though. There were several things that made this event so special. Firstly, it was NSDA's 100th event. Hell, even the actor who played or voiced Olaf was there. To us, it wasn't anything special at all, except for the fact that we thought we were going to win the thing. We couldn't have been further from the truth, obviously. But then, secondly, there was the incident. Let's just get straight to the story. So it was near finals. We had finished our little run in extemporaneous debate after not breaking in the World Schools category. Our coach, who had been at the event before, was insistent that we go to the humorous interpretation finals. According to him, it was the best finals of the entire bunch. Everyone was always laughing. There were thousands of people there. They were laughing in sync. It should have been fun, at least. It was going to be good, according to him. A few of us didn't want to go to this event. We had just started watching Parasite, and a lot of us were hooked in the movie, or as we say, locked in. But due to our insistent coach, we decided to go. We made a deal with the whole group that whoever laughs needs to pay up a few dollars just to make things fun. The venue was obviously packed when we got there. Think your average high school gym, but 10 times with a bajillion chairs and a hell of a lot speakers and debaters. It's kind of a weird environment to be in, to say the least. Anyways, we arrived a bit late after a small issue with our identification. They needed to check who was allowed to go in, and you will see the irony of that in just a second. They were checking for security's sake. So we took a seat in the bleachers way back from the Hughes stage, where the speakers were performing. It was a bit boring, I can't lie. We couldn't even see the speakers because it was so far back. To us, it looked like a tiny little doll. Obviously, the speakers were funny. They clearly put a lot of effort and work into it. It was really impressive. Some of them were more impressive than others, obviously, but it was just clearly not matching with our group's humor code. All of us were scrolling through our phones by the end of the 5 out of 6 speakers. Then came the last speaker, and it was this girl in a red dress, and she emerged from the curtains, but there was this other guy with really frizzy hair, a weird outfit, not quite appropriate, a backpack and a plastic bag in hand, that just walked up to the stage. At first, everyone thought it was part of the act. It was humorous interpretation. Anything ridiculous could happen and we could all laugh about it. And the girl in red, she was just like, oh, what do I do? I'm supposed to perform next, but there's this guy on my stage. So she lingered around the edge of the stage next to the curtains. And the guy, looking very angered in most opinions, belligerently first shouts the F word and then shouts, "You want to hear something really funny?" So loud that we could slightly hear from the bleachers as well. And for context, the fifth speaker had given several knock-knock jokes as part of her performance, and this guy yells, "Knock, knock," turns around, and begins to drop his backpack onto the stage floor. And at this point, the camera's all cut from the screen, and someone, probably a judge, tells that sixth girl, the performer, to run, and she's already connected to the mic, so she repeats, "Run away?" to confirm, which is heard by basically everyone in the stadium. Then she runs backstage. The mic cuts off, and soon everyone from the venue, thousands of people, start running away all at once. Chairs are flipped, Phones are thrown to the ground, coats are left behind, people are pushing each other belligerently. Some people fall down, a lot of people fall down and get trampled. They lose their shoes. Just imagine the biggest stampede event that you can think of and double that image. Now, I must note here that all of this info I found out way after the incident. Most of our group was just chilling with our phone before it happened, obviously. Myself, I was looking up from my YouTube video when everyone just started running in front of me. I looked at my coach, who was also confused on what was going on, but everyone was running, so I got up, pushed people myself, and ran like I never had before. It was about 30 degrees Celsius, the sun was blazing, and I ran out of there for my life. My initial thoughts were gun, because, well, it's the US. I had run at least 20 blocks with hundreds of people scattered around trying to get a hold of my teammates. My thoughts were just get away as far from that building as possible, and I did just that until I forgot how to get back to my hotel. Just then, a worker in a seafood restaurant opened his doors to us, and people just bolted in. I followed. Inside was probably better than outside. Inside, though, was much more chaos. There were about 15 people, all out of breath. One person was clearly a coach. She had just been trampled. Her head was bleeding. She was crying and sweating. She was cursing like a sailor, trying to make sure that her school kids were safe. One of her kids had a cast on, and she was obviously hurt again because she also would have had to run, and she also got trampled, and probably someone stepped on her cast. It was a whole mess. Another guy seemed relatively calm until he started grabbing screwdrivers and knives from the restaurant in order to protect himself in case the crazy guys started to come into restaurants. People started breaking down and calling their parents and friends, presumably to say their goodbyes. Myself, I was also pretty shocked. We had confirmed that all of our teammates were alive in our group chat, but we were scattered all around the place. I was insistent that I would stay in the restaurant instead of search for them because it just felt safer to be inside than outside. The restaurant staff came around giving everyone a glass of water, taking people down to the basement where supposedly this weapon couldn't chase them down. The restaurant staff obviously were real angels. When I had also finally gotten my heartbeat under control, I went down to the basement trying to figure out what the hell had happened. At that point, I still had no idea about the man. Some people said that they heard 3 clear gunshots and that's why they ran. Other people say that they thought the backpack was a bomb. Other people said the judges who were seated in the front row, including the Olaf voice actor Josh Gad, started running, so they started running as well. Josh Gad later opened up, by the way, saying he was trampled multiple times. That was the extent of this. Finally, it was released in the news that no weapon was identified. At that point, I felt safe enough to leave, so I met up with my coach and teammates to walk back to our hotel. A few of them had just straight up run back to the hotel. One of them Ubered back. We gathered in the hotel room and tried to figure out what had happened. One of my teammates lost his passport and wallet, but none of us were hurt physically or anything. To be very frank with you, we were all joking around, only after a few minutes. Of course, there was some serious component to it. People could have died being trampled, people got hurt, but it was mainly incredible pity for that one last speaker in the red dress that never got to have the same amount of audience because obviously no one was going to the venue after that. And obviously the judges were going to feel a bit shaken after that. Maybe they weren't feeling themselves when scoring that last person. Also, another guy's title of his piece was Boom, Boom, Boom. We joked about how that piece was absolutely never going to win, and one of my teammates started turning on Staying Alive as a celebratory song piece, and he just started falling asleep on his bed. And when our coach asked, does anyone regret going to the humorous interpretation event? None of us raised our hands. Of course, it was a real threat. Things would have been very different if one of us got trampled or hurt. We started talking about the politics of gun control in the US, but after that, we went to a restaurant and had a very bad That was one of many moments in the trip that I felt incredibly happy that I was with this bunch of people. We had similar humor codes. We could get past this traumatic event. It was later released that the man on stage with the backpack and the plastic bag was a man called Jaden Rockefort. He was 22. He was arrested by Des Moines police on June 19th for disorderly conduct and possession of a controlled substance. He was then released on bond the next day. People say that he's going to get about 2 years in jail. Rockefort had previously been named in articles about the Western Kentucky University forensics team, but is no longer a member. WKU confirmed that he was not representing the university during the incident and declined further comment. They will probably have some backlash after that. This obviously disrupted NSDA's 100th anniversary competition. It hosted nearly 10,000 people that weekend. And in terms of the forensics team director, WKO's Ganner Newman expressed sadness over the disruption, but praised how the debate community handled the situation. What's even sadder is that this guy, Rockefort, was something like a 2-time national champion in NSDA in something like prose or poetry. We watched his performances in the hotel room. It was during the COVID era, and it was in YouTube. They were quite good. Our team decided that he did drugs and something happened to him either because he did drugs or something happened to him which led him to do drugs. Although we'll never really know what his intentions were. The thing in the plastic bag turned out to be incredible amounts of drugs, substance, and in the backpack, I'm not quite sure. I assume it's just normal backpack stuff. And like the teenagers we are, everyone stalked this man online. A few hours later, some people from our team found his Instagram, and here are some of the comments that people, not from our team, but generally in the tournament, left on some of his posts. Number 1, your HI, humorous interpretation, was so funny I stayed on the floor. Your piece was super moving today. So funny my shoes came off, didn't even realize they were off until I ran outside. Absolutely hilarious. Loved your humorous interpretation. Nice humorous interpretation. I like the part where you made my friends lose their shoes because they just needed to keep running. With a fire emoji. And obviously, there are always responses to these comments saying, this isn't funny, obviously. I'm not really sure. Clearly, some people found it as entertaining as some of our teammates did and made a dark comedy. Clearly, some other people didn't. I assumed they were people who had experienced a similar situation, only with an actual weapon. I don't consider myself to align with a lot of political ideas in the US. Most policies tend to stray away from the values that made these policies in the first place. But the fact that thousands of people's brains immediately went to bomb as soon as they saw a backpack is pretty telling. This is my second gun scare of the year, and mind you, I've only been in the US for a year, both on a pretty mass scale. I simply have no words to sugarcoat this. The fact that thousands of people die from firearm violence every month, it's just not fair to them. So I can laugh at the Wyoming man incident. I can laugh it off. But I would be lying if I said that I wasn't scared for my life for a good 30 minutes. I hope that's not what every 16-year-old in this country has to face. I give the sugarcoating of the Wyoming man gone wrong a 1.5. This podcast was written and produced by me, Vinny Kim. If you have any comments or reviews, please feel free to write any and all thoughts on your podcast reviews. If you'd like to suggest an affliction for me to sugarcoat, please email me via afflictionssugarcoated@gmail.com. I hope you stay safe out there, whether it's from firearms, people, or feelings. And I'll speak to you next month.